The alien child ignored everyone and ran to me. The queen said, "My son has selected." The grand conclave of the Cathari hive stretched across the horizon like a living cathedral. Its walls pulsed with faint bioluminescence, reacting to the voices and movements of its inhabitants. Elias Mercer, the human envoy, stood just inside the vast chamber, feeling dwarfed by the enormity of it all. He had traveled across light years, from a small human colony on the edge of explored space, to witness what no human had ever truly seen before, a gathering of the Cathari, one of the oldest species in known galactic history. Every detail of the hive screamed order and tradition. Every step was measured, every sound controlled. Even the air seemed to hum with purpose. Elias had been briefed that humans were to be observers only. They were not to interfere. The Cathari viewed off-worlders with a mixture of curiosity and caution. To them, humanity was an unpredictable species, reckless in its ambition yet strangely resilient. And yet, as Elias looked around at the towering, insectoid figures in ceremonial garb, he felt an odd mixture of fear and wonder. The center of the chamber was dominated by the queen's throne, a spiraling structure that seemed to grow organically from the floor itself. Seated upon it was the queen, her presence radiating authority. She was tall, even for her species, with a sleek carapace that shimmered in colors Elias could not name. Every movement she made was deliberate, controlled, and commanding. Around her stood the elders, their exoskeletons adorned with intricate patterns marking centuries of rank and service. Today was no ordinary gathering. The queen's child, the heir, was about to perform a ceremonial selection. For the Cathari, this ritual was more than tradition. It was law. Every action, every gaze, every choice made during the ceremony was a signal of who would influence the next generation. Typically, the heir acknowledged only Cathari elders, cementing bonds that had lasted for centuries. Human presence here was unprecedented, and every Cathari in the chamber seemed to sense the anomaly. When the doors to the inner chamber slid open, revealing the young heir, a hush fell over the conclave. The child moved with cautious grace, each step measured, yet filled with a vibrancy that seemed out of place in the rigid environment. Most species present would have found the heir distant, cold, untouchable. Yet even as the child walked past rows of guards and elders, there was something familiar in the way the heir's large, multifaceted eyes scanned the room. And then it happened. The child ignored the rows of elders, ignored the guards, ignored the queen herself. Instead, the heir's gaze locked onto Elias. Time seemed to slow. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber, a sound that was more instinct than deliberate. For centuries, the heir had never chosen an outsider, let alone a human. Yet here, before every witness, the young Cathari broke all protocol. With a speed and determination that belied their delicate frame, the heir sprinted across the polished floor toward Elias. Elias froze for a moment, unsure whether to move or remain still. His instincts screamed caution, but curiosity and an unexpected warmth in his chest held him in place. The child reached him, small hands wrapping around his, and Elias bent slightly to meet the heir's gaze. The chamber erupted into chaos. Guards raised their weapons, their antennae twitching in alarm. Elders hissed, their voices sharp with disbelief. The queen rose slowly, her expression unreadable, a storm behind her measured calm. "Stop," she commanded, her voice echoing unnaturally through the chamber. "Do not touch him, the ritual." The queen's words hung in the air, meaningless against the clarity of the child's choice. The room waited in tense silence, breaths caught, hearts racing. For centuries, the rules had been absolute. Protocols could not be broken. Yet here was a moment that defied every law, every tradition, every expectation. Elias knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to the heir's height. He offered nothing but calm and curiosity, no attempt to command or control. He spoke only through presence, letting the child see that he was neither threat nor ruler. Finally, the queen spoke again, her voice steady and heavy with meaning. "My son has selected." Never before had a human been acknowledged in such a way. The concept alone was unimaginable. The queen's eyes softened, though her posture remained regal. Elias did not understand the full significance yet, but he felt the weight of it. He realized that everything around him, the grandeur, the history, the strict hierarchy, had just shifted. The future of the Cathari hive, in some way, had been altered by this simple, fearless act of a child reaching for him. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "It seems," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else, "that tradition is not always stronger than instinct." Elias could feel the warmth, a connection that transcended words. He understood in that moment that the child had seen something in him, something beyond species, beyond politics, beyond history. The elders began to argue among themselves, their voices rising in alarm and confusion. Some called for the immediate removal of the human, others debated the legality of the child's choice. No one seemed to have an answer. The queen's silence was more powerful than their noise. Elias felt the pressure of countless eyes upon him. He could not retreat. He could not flinch. The heir's trust, placed so completely in him, demanded that he respond with calm, clarity, and respect. In a strange way, the burden was not his alone, it was shared. Shared with the child who had defied centuries of law to choose him. Slowly, the queen extended a hand toward Elias. The chamber quieted once more. Every movement she made was deliberate, measured, teaching the room that authority was not just about control. It was about understanding, about adapting when the moment demanded it. "You will remain," the queen said, her voice echoing like steel tempered with warmth, "until the matter is resolved." The heir released his hand reluctantly, returning to the queen's side, but the bond remained. Elias knew it, the queen knew it, and even the most skeptical elder could sense it. This bond was not a political statement. It was real. It was instinctive. It was undeniable. As the conclave continued, Elias was escorted to a private chamber, not a prison but not a guest room either. The walls pulsed with soft light, reflecting the alien architecture, and he took a moment to absorb everything that had happened. He had expected to witness history. He had never expected to be part of it. He thought of the child, standing proud yet innocent, a living reminder that rules, no matter how old, could be rewritten by courage and instinct. And somewhere deep inside, Elias felt a stirring of hope, not just for himself but for humanity. Perhaps, despite their small place in the galaxy, humans had something unique to offer, the ability to connect, to understand, and to inspire trust across worlds. The heir's choice had not been random. Elias could feel it in every cautious glance, every small movement that betrayed thoughtfulness beyond years. The child had chosen him because he had responded in kind, not with fear, not with pride, but with presence and respect. That night, as the chamber lights dimmed and the hive settled into uneasy quiet, Elias sat alone, contemplating the enormity of what had occurred. Outside, the hive hummed with life and movement, a galaxy of stars reflected in its endless corridors. Within its walls, centuries of tradition had been challenged by the innocence and courage of a single child, and the calm presence of a human who dared to meet it. The queen's words echoed in his mind. "My son has selected." He did not know how the Cathari would react, how the elders would scheme, or how the galaxy would view this unprecedented bond. But he did know one thing clearly. The heir had chosen him, and that choice was no small thing. It was a statement of trust, a challenge to centuries of law, and a signal that humanity, in its small and unpredictable way, was capable of shaping destinies far beyond their own world. For the first time in his life, Elias Mercer felt the weight and the wonder of possibility. The future, he realized, had just run to him, and he had to be ready to meet it. The morning light in the hive's inner chambers was soft but alive, pulsing faintly with the organic architecture of the Cathari. Elias Mercer woke on a platform that seemed more like a living organism than a room. The walls shimmered in subtle patterns, responding to the presence of life within. He rose carefully, aware that this was no ordinary accommodation. He was not a guest, and he was not a prisoner. He was something in between, a witness, a participant, and perhaps, in ways he was only beginning to understand, a key to the future of the Cathari hive. Outside the chamber, a low hum filled the air, a sound that resonated deep in his chest. It was the hive itself, alive and aware, sensing his every movement. Elias had been trained for diplomacy, for negotiation, for survival in tense situations. But nothing in his human experience had prepared him for this level of awareness, where walls seemed to breathe and eyes, both literal and figurative, watched constantly. The heir, the child who had chosen him, had been brought in for morning rituals. The Cathari young followed strict routines, exercises that trained their minds and senses in ways humans could barely imagine. Yet every now and then, the child's thoughts drifted. Elias had seen it when they first met. Even in their society, bound by rules and ceremony, the heir could feel connection, understanding, and curiosity beyond the rigid protocol. The first challenge came in the form of the elders' deliberation. Elias was summoned to a private audience with three of the most senior Cathari officials. Their exoskeletons glimmered with the marks of rank, and their compound eyes regarded him with suspicion. "You have been chosen," said the eldest, her voice a melodic hiss that carried authority. "But choice is not law. You must prove yourself." "I am willing to learn what is expected of me." He had faced challenges before, diplomatic crises and negotiations on war-torn planets, but never a test of this kind. It was not enough to be clever or strong. He had to show empathy, restraint, and insight. He had to meet the child not as an outsider, but as someone capable of guiding the future of a civilization. Later, Elias was escorted to the heir's chambers. The child's eyes brightened when he saw him, a warmth that transcended the differences of species. "Good morning," Elias said simply, kneeling to meet the heir's height. The heir tilted its head. Communication between humans and Cathari was limited, mostly through gestures and subtle inflections. Words were secondary, yet in those quiet moments, Elias felt the connection deepen. It was as if the child could sense his thoughts, his honesty, and his intentions. "We must prepare for what comes," Elias said softly. "They will test both of us, but I will not fail you." The heir had chosen him, and now he had to rise to that choice. The trial began the next day. It was held in the central chamber, under the gaze of the queen and the elders. Elias was led to a platform, facing the heir, whose eyes were calm but alert. The trial did not start with weapons or competition. Instead, the air shifted, the room pulsing with a strange energy that touched the mind as much as the body. The elders explained the rules. "You will face visions," the eldest said. "They are not illusions. They are challenges to your mind and morality. You will relive moments of choice. You will confront the consequences of your actions, real or imagined. The heir will observe. Only those who are truthful and compassionate may succeed." He relived the panic, the fear, and the weight of responsibility. He could have fled. He could have let others suffer. But he had acted, risking himself to save others. The memory was sharp, vivid, and he allowed himself to feel every emotion fully. The vision shifted. He found himself on a war-torn planet, negotiating between warring factions. He had made compromises, shown patience, and at times even deception for the greater good. The vision forced him to confront the gray areas of morality, the choices that were not black or white. He did not flinch. He did not hide. He let the truth of his actions, both successes and failures, stand before him. Through it all, the heir remained calm, observing closely. It was not just the actions that mattered, but the intent behind them. Elias understood then what had drawn the child to him in the first place. Humans were flawed, yes, but capable of empathy, responsibility, and selflessness in ways that transcended species. The final vision was the most challenging. Elias found himself in a scenario where the heir was in danger, surrounded by hostile forces he could not control. The instinct to act was immediate, but the trial required restraint. He had to show protection without dominance, care without controlling, and courage without recklessness. Elias acted instinctively. He positioned himself to shield the air, his body between the child and imagined threats. Yet he did not seek to control the environment. He did not fight for glory or victory. He simply protected, with the calm clarity of purpose. The vision faded, leaving him standing on the platform, heart racing but mind clear. A silence fell over the chamber. The elders exchanged glances, their compound eyes wide with surprise and contemplation. The queen remained still, her gaze unwavering. Finally she spoke, her voice calm yet filled with authority. "The bond is genuine," she declared. "The heir has chosen not only wisely but with understanding. The human has proven intent, compassion, and judgment beyond what many of our species achieve in a lifetime." The elders were cautious. "This is unprecedented," one said. "A human as a voice anchor. The implications are vast. The hive has never encountered such an influence. How will our young ruler be guided by one so alien to our ways?" "I seek only to guide and protect, to offer perspective, and to help the heir understand choices beyond your walls. That is all." The ability to adapt, to act from empathy and understanding, made humans capable of bonds that could reshape futures. The heir stepped forward, reaching for Elias once again. In that simple gesture, centuries of tradition and caution melted away. It was more than trust, it was recognition, a silent promise that they would face the challenges ahead together. For Elias, the moment was humbling. He realized the enormity of what had been placed in his hands, not control over a ruler but a responsibility to guide, protect, and inspire. The future of the hive was intertwined with humanity in ways that no one could have predicted, and he had to rise to that challenge. The queen spoke again, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Let this be known. The heir has chosen. The bond is valid. The human will remain as the voice anchor, guiding and protecting, until such time as the child is capable of independence." Later, Elias returned to his private chamber, the heir following at a cautious distance. He watched the child move with a mix of curiosity and joy, their presence a constant reminder of why he had been chosen. "You see," Elias said softly, kneeling beside the heir, "this is only the beginning. There will be challenges ahead, and you will need guidance, just as I will need yours." He realized fully that the trial had been less about proving him worthy and more about revealing the unique strength of humanity, the ability to care, to adapt, and to act with both courage and conscience. As the day ended, the hive hummed with life around them. Outside the chamber, the corridors pulsed with energy, the endless activity of a civilization both ancient and alive. Inside, a human and an alien child sat together, bound by choice, trust, and the shared understanding that the future would not be dictated by law alone, but by the courage to follow instinct and heart. For Elias, that was the true meaning of the heir's selection. Not power, not privilege, not control, but connection, understanding, responsibility. And in that connection, the first spark of a new era began to shine, a promise that humanity, even on the edge of the galaxy, could shape destinies far beyond their own. The hive changed after the trial. It was not sudden, but Elias Mercer could feel it in the air. The living walls pulsed differently now, slower and more thoughtful, as if the entire structure was adjusting to a new truth. The elders still watched him, but their gazes were no longer sharp with suspicion alone. Some were curious, some were uneasy, and a few were afraid. Elias understood why. The bond between him and the heir had been accepted by law, but not by everyone's heart. He walked through the upper corridors with measured steps, the heir moving beside him. Guards followed at a respectful distance. The child's presence changed everything. Where once doors remained sealed, they now opened. Where silence had ruled, whispers followed. The heir sensed it too. The child paused near a wide observation chamber, looking out at the endless layers of the hive. Elias knelt beside him, "You feel it, don't you?" he asked softly. "The change." He did not fear it, but he felt the tension. The hive was a place of order, and order did not like to be disturbed. Later that cycle, the queen summoned Elias privately. Her chamber was quiet, lit by soft amber light. She stood near a pool of shimmering liquid that reflected her image in shifting colors. "You have passed our trials," the queen said. "But trials are not always announced. They are information." "They will test us," the queen said, "and they will test you." A diplomatic delegation from a rival species had arrived unannounced, forcing entry under ancient interstellar law. They were tall, rigid beings, their movements precise and cold. Their leader stepped forward, eyes fixed on Elias. "So this is the human," the delegate said, "the one influencing the future queen." The session continued under heavy tension. The delegates questioned hive traditions, challenged decisions, and subtly undermined the heir's authority. It was not an attack of weapons, but of pressure. The heir shifted uncomfortably. Elias saw it and acted. He stepped forward, not aggressively, but confidently. "You are guests," he said calmly. "And guests should remember they stand in another's home." They proposed an ancient challenge called the severance rite, a ritual meant to test whether a bond weakened a ruler's independence. In truth, it was designed to isolate the heir from Elias emotionally. The queen opposed it, but law demanded debate. Elias was given the choice to step away temporarily to prove he was not controlling the child. He agreed. For the first time since the bond was formed, Elias was separated from the heir. The silence was heavy. The heir struggled. Lessons felt empty. The hive felt colder. The child did not panic, but the absence was clear. Elias, confined to a distant chamber, felt it too. The bond did not vanish, it stretched, strained, but remained. That was the point. The elders watched closely. During the separation, a malfunction occurred deep within the hive's core systems. A living structure collapsed, trapping several workers. Panic spread. Protocol demanded waiting for senior approval. The heir was present. He hesitated. Then he remembered Elias' lessons. Not words, but actions. Responsibility. Care. Acting when others hesitate. The heir gave the order. Rescue teams moved immediately. Lives were saved. When the queen arrived, she saw the truth clearly. The bond had not weakened her son. It had strengthened him. The severance rite ended early. Elias was brought back. The reunion was quiet but powerful. The heir stood taller now, eyes more focused. Elias knelt and placed a hand over his heart, not touching, just acknowledging. "You did well," he said simply. The heir responded with a soft, proud sound. The elders could no longer deny it. Humanity had not taken control. Humanity had taught choice, but the rival delegates were not finished. They issued a formal warning. "If this continues," their leader said, "the balance of power will shift. We cannot allow a future queen shaped by human unpredictability." And yet here they were, not as conquerors, as guides. The queen joined him quietly. "They fear what they do not control," she said. "So do we," Elias replied, "but fear should never decide the future." "Yes," he said, "not to rule, not to command, but to protect and advise, always." It was the ability to stand beside someone else's future and care. As the hive settled into uneasy calm, Elias knew the hardest part was still ahead. The coming conflict would not be fought only with ships or weapons, but with trust, belief, and courage. And humanity was ready. The future was learning. And it was learning from them. The day of declaration arrived quietly, but the entire hive felt it. The living walls glowed brighter than usual, responding to the tension and expectation flowing through every corridor. Elias Mercer stood at the edge of the grand conclave once more, in the same place where everything had begun. But now, he was no longer an unnoticed observer. Every eye followed him. The heir stood at the center of the chamber, taller than before, posture confident, movement steady. Time had passed, not in years, but in growth. The child was no longer simply a symbol of the future. He was beginning to shape it. Around them, representatives from many species gathered. The rival coalition had returned, joined by neutral observers and cautious allies. The galaxy had come to witness what many believed would be the breaking point of the Cathari hive. At the heart of it all stood a simple question. Could a future queen, guided by a human, be trusted? The queen rose from her throne, her presence commanding silence. "This gathering," she said, "is not for conflict. It is for clarity." Elias felt the bond stir not as emotion alone but as shared purpose. He did not stand beside the child this time. He stood behind him. That choice mattered. The heir looked out across the chamber, eyes calm and focused. His voice, though young, carried clearly. "I was chosen to lead," he said, "but leadership is not knowing everything. It is knowing who to listen to." "Yes," he said, "and yet they learned, they changed. They survived not by domination but by cooperation." This time they were not internal. A massive energy surge appeared at the edge of the system, an ancient automated defense construct left behind by a long-dead empire had activated. It did not recognize the hive or the surrounding civilizations as authorized. It prepared to cleanse the region. Panic spread. The queen remained calm. "This is the galaxy's test," she said. Fleet commanders argued. Some demanded immediate attack, others called for retreat. The construct was powerful, ancient, and merciless. Direct conflict would cost countless lives. The heir turned to Elias, not for orders, for perspective. Elias stepped forward at last. "That construct was built to destroy threats," he said calmly, "so let us not act like one." Instead of attacking, they would approach the construct openly, broadcasting every communication channel, sharing data, intent, and identity. It was risky. To many it seemed foolish, but the heir understood. "Fear built that weapon," the heir said. "Understanding may stop it." A joint fleet launched, Cathari vessels at the core, human ships alongside them, smaller allies following. Elias accompanied the heir aboard the command vessel. As they approached the construct, its weapons charged. Elias activated the broadcast. "This is not a challenge," he said. "This is a conversation." Of rebuilding, of species learning from mistakes, the construct paused. Its ancient systems processed data it had never been designed to understand: empathy, adaptation, shared survival. The heir stepped forward, placing a clawed hand on the console. "We are not your enemy," he said, "and we do not fear change." The galaxy watched in stunned disbelief. Back in the Grand Conclave, the declaration resumed. The rival coalition had no argument left. The future queen had faced a real threat and chosen wisdom over force. The queen spoke the final words. "My son has chosen his path," she said, "and humanity has proven its place not as rulers but as guardians of understanding." He had never wanted power. He had only wanted to be worthy of the trust given to him. The heir approached him, standing proudly. "You did not lead me," the child said. "You walked with me." A species that could stand beside the future of another and care. Elias remained with the hive not as a commander but as a mentor. And as the heir grew, so did the bond, not as dependence but as respect. One evening, Elias stood once more at the edge of the hive, watching the stars. The heir joined him. "The galaxy is afraid," the heir said. "Yes," Elias replied. "But fear is just the start of learning."